Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. China has vowed to retaliate against the US after it ended Hong Kong's preferential trade status and imposed sanctions on officials who cracked down on rights. President Donald Trump said he was acting because China had taken away Hong Kong's freedom after it imposed a new security law. Beijing condemned Mr. Trump's decision, saying it would impose sanctions on relevant people and entities in the US. Meanwhile, state media has promised public and painful retaliation against the UK over its ban of Huawei from the country's 5G networks. This announcement was followed by the Chinese Foreign Ministry declaration that China will take all necessary measures to safeguard its interests following the UK's decision to ban all Huawei equipment from its 5G network by the end of 2027. The Japanese capital Tokyo has raised its coronavirus alert to the highest red level after a recent spike in daily new cases. The city's governor described the situation in the capital as rather severe, as the number of cases exceeded 200 in 4 of the past 7 days. The tests show the infection is rising among people in their 20s and 30s. Health experts noted Tokyo hospitals were getting crowded as the number of patients doubled from the previous week. Thousands of people have demonstrated in Azerbaijan calling for war after recent deadly clashes with neighbouring Armenia. Protesters marched through the capital, Baku, demanding the government fully deploy the army, with some even entering the national parliament. Security forces responded with water cannon and tear gas to disperse the crowds. The recent border fighting has killed at least 16 people. Thousands of Israelis have protested outside Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's residence in Jerusalem, demanding his resignation. Demonstrators argue his response to the coronavirus has been inept and his corruption trial would make him unfit to continue in office. The protesters were then dispersed by police with water cannon, and 50 of them were arrested for violating anti-COVID-19 restrictions. Mr. Netanyahu's corruption trial is due to resume on Sunday. A massive fire has broken out in one of Egypt's main crude oil pipelines, injuring at least 12 people, that's according to the Egyptian Health Ministry. Videos circulating on social media showed thick plumes of smoke and burning cars along the side of the road in a Cairo suburb. 17 people were injured by the accident. The pipeline runs along a major highway on the outskirts of Cairo, and authorities reported a spark caused by cars driving along the road set crude oil leaking from the pipe on fire. Thousands of people have protested in the Belarusian capital Minsk after the Central Election Commission refused to register the 2 main rivals of President Alexander Lukashenko as candidates in the next presidential election. The Commission's decision all but ensures victory for Mr. Lukashenko, who has been in power for 26 years. The 2 men had been widely seen as the last candidates left with a chance of defeating the president, who faces his strongest opposition in years as frustration mounts over the economy, human rights and his playing down of the coronavirus pandemic. Flash floods and landslides have killed at least 16 people and displaced hundreds in a district on the Indonesian island of Sulawesi. Search and rescue officials were still looking for 23 people missing after the floods struck the North Luwu district. Heavy rains had inundated 3 nearby rivers for several days, prompting the evacuation of 655 people. Meanwhile, several dams across southern China have begun to overflow as a result of flooding caused by record rainfalls. Aerial footage of paramilitary working along a leaking dam in Wuhu city of eastern Anhui province. At least 141 people have died and millions have been evacuated. A sculpture of a black protester has replaced the statue of a 17th century English slave trader toppled by anti-racism demonstrators last month in the UK. The statue of Edward Colston, who made a fortune from trading in West African slaves, was pulled down and thrown into the Bristol Harbour by anti-racism protesters demonstrating in the wake of the death of the African-American George Floyd. It was replaced by the sculpture of activist Jen Reed, who was photographed standing on the plinth of Colston's statue after it was brought down. And finally, the remains of an ancient Aztec palace have been discovered under a stately building in Mexico City. During renovations at the building off the capital's central Zocalo Plaza, workers found basalt slab floors. The palace, which was built in 1481 and was the former residence of the Aztec ruler Axayacatl, was also the home of the Spanish conquistador Hernán Cortés after the fall of the Aztec Empire in 1521. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.